Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Mortgage Fundamentals Podcast. I am your host, Daniel Mosqueda, a loan officer here on Las Vegas, and I am joined by two very special guests. One of them is an agent I've been working with for years and is amazing, works with all her clients and does them nothing but the best service she can give them. Giselle, how are
Thank
you?
you. Hello, good afternoon, and good morning whenever you're watching this video.
Good night, whatever the case may be. And I also have a very special guest here today. This guy is from the Nevada Rural Housing Department here in Las Vegas. He works with the programs available to people here in the rural areas. So here is Kevin.
Yeah.
So,
Hi. Thanks for joining us today. I appreciate being here, the opportunity to be here.
yeah.
My name is Kevin Hickey, and I'm the Homeownership Programs Manager with Nevada Rural Housing, and I'm here to talk about down payment assistance
Yep.
and what Nevada Rural Housing has to offer.
Yeah, so Kevin was kind enough to actually just show up on a random day at my house to do this podcast. So I really do appreciate it.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
And we're here basically to kind of give you guys, not kind of, but to really give you guys a little bit of a heads up as to some of the resources that are available to you. I know Kevin is working specifically here with Nevada Rural Housing for Nevada clients, but in a sense, take this as a broad way of knowing that there are a lot of resources in different areas where you can actually get down payment assistance and get yourself into a home to cover your down payment, closing costs, or whatever the case may be. So right now we'll just start off. Kevin, do you want to give us a little bit of information on maybe some of the programs that Nevada Rural Housing has or
Yeah, sure.
things around down payment assistance?
Yeah, I will. I'll start out with just a little brief history of Nevada Rural Housing, if that's okay, just so
It's
folks
perfectly
know
fine.
who we are, and then kind of help define rural, because rural does not mean the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
So there is a different definition, and we can thank the state legislature for that. But Nevada Rural Housing does provide down payment assistance and affordable credit opportunities for those looking to buy a home. But we also provide weatherization services throughout rural Nevada, including the city of North Las Vegas. So again, rural, it's relative. So we do provide those services as well. We administer rental assistance in the 15 rural counties,
Okay.
as well as build and develop multifamily housing in rural communities with a new project that just opened in Mesquite with 96 units. So,
Oh, nice.
so Nevada Rural Housing is a little tiny agency based in Carson City. My office happens to be here in Las Vegas, and I work in that homeownership programs department. So a little agency that does a lot. But of course, we're here to talk about down payment assistance and the programs that Nevada Rural Housing offers. And with that, I'll dive into that rural definition here.
Okay.
So for our homeownership programs, rural means an area with a population below 150,000. But what defines an area? A tax district, something none of us look at. I mean, in real estate, we're talking about census tracts and zip codes and city limits and all that. It's tax districts, which is complicated, but we've made it easy. As you probably know, we have a website that folks can go to and map a property to make sure that it's in an eligible area.
Yeah.
So in the Las Vegas Valley, there are 3 areas that have a population below 150,000, and that's Summerlin South, Winchester, and Whitney. So it always kind of makes me laugh a little bit that Winchester is smack in the middle of the Las Vegas Valley, and it's rural because there's less than 150,000 people that live there. So that's just in the Vegas Valley. Of course, if you go outside the Vegas Valley, areas like Mesquite, Pahrump, Laughlin, Boulder City, all of those are 100% eligible. So it's just right in the Vegas Valley where there's those limitations.
Yeah, so for me, I know that I've been doing a lot of research on down payment assistance programs and especially your guys' programs because they're usually really great and offer a lot of good funds, I guess I would say. But usually when I'm working with like someone like Giselle, like one of the agents I normally work with, I promote these and I'm always very particular in how I tell them. I'm like, Giselle, you got to make sure that it's in this very specific area when we go look.
Right.
And I send them the how maps that you guys have, which
Yep.
is very good. So one of the great things that I love about their programs is not only that they have great programs, but the resources that they actually have online for lenders, buyers, real estate agents is really, really straightforward, easy to find, and just useful. So,
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
yeah.
We launched a new website a little over a year ago, and it was definitely a labor of love to get it out there. And we continue to tweak it based on feedback from everyone, home buyers, lenders, realtors. So we appreciate that feedback. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, no.
We
Okay,
dive
so
in.
what we'll start doing right now then is we'll start diving into some of the programs. Again, just before we get into this, guys, again, down payment assistance programs are here to help you get into a home. I think one of the biggest things that people have, or one of the top two, is either credit. People have a hard time understanding what their credit is, or
Mm-hmm.
afraid that their credit isn't going to be good enough to get into a house. Or the other issue or setback that people have in their heads most of the time is that they don't have a lot of money
Right.
to get into a home, right?
Correct.
Because there's down payment and closing costs. So they assume that they're going to need to break the bank to get into a home. And that's where the down payment assistance programs come in and actually assist you or help you get into those homes without having to throw away your entire life savings just to get into that home, and stop yourself from just spending your money on renting.
Correct.
Right.
So without further ado,
Yes. So we'll dive right in. Just talking about down payment assistance in general, you brought up some good points there. Like, a lot of folks still think that 20% is the minimum down payment required, and it's just not true. Of course, depending on the loan type, if it's government, 3.5% is required on an FHA, no down payment, of course, on VA or USDA, and then 3% for conventional. So it doesn't take 20% down payment to get into a home. And our program, depending on which one, provides what you need. It provides up to 4% of down payment assistance. And that extra 0.5% can be used toward closing costs as well. So it really is there to help folks get into a home. And let's just say, what if you have a little bit of money tucked away? Does that matter or impact your eligibility? No. We actually encourage folks to hold on to money that they have, use the program funds to get into a home, because owning a home can be expensive
oh
too.
yeah,
Correct.
You've got to
Yeah.
have a maintenance fund set aside, and you're moving into a new home. You want to make it yours,
Correct.
furniture, curtains, whatever it might be, landscaping. So it's you can use the program funds to help you get into the home, and use any money that you've saved to like you said, help cover any of those closing costs, but more importantly, keep that money for other things, that turn your house into a home,
Yeah.
and beyond, even other, buy a home and go on vacation. That's what you can
Yeah.
do by just maximizing the use of those funds.
Yeah.
So
I think the one thing you touched on there, remember, we just had recently a client where we kind of suggested that, right? We're
Yes.
like, don't throw away all your funds.
Yep. Why don't we use the grant?
Yeah.
You qualify for it.
Yeah.
And with that, people ask, well, are there asset limits? No. You can have, a whole bunch of money tucked away in the bank. You can still qualify for the program because there are no asset limits to get that down payment assistance. And the other important part to mention, which you kind of touched on too, is that not only does the program provide down payment assistance, but it also provides access to affordable credit. So folks might know that the lower your credit score is, the higher your interest rate might be. And if you're purchasing, let's say, a manufactured home, your interest rate might be a full point higher than what it would be for a stick-built home. In our program, the interest rate does not change based on the property type or the credit score. So provided the borrower has our minimum credit score of 640, they're going to get the same great interest rate as somebody with an 800 plus credit score. So it's not just the down payment, it's also access to affordable credit. And that can really make the difference, as you know, on whether or not you can afford a home.
Yeah, so I've definitely used your programs a lot in Pahrump when it comes to manufactured homes. And when I compare pricing to when we're doing like our scenarios and I compare the pricing to manufactured homes, it has a much higher cost. And I think we recently had a client where we were looking at pricing for one.
Yes.
Right. And it was really expensive to get into a manufactured home when you're doing regular financing with FHA, VA, conventional, whatever the case may be. Those LLPAs or loan level price adjustments are just off the roof. But whenever I get clients into this program, it's always a relief to know that I'm not going to have like this extra cost to it, in a sense. I'm even looking back at some of my clients that I've recently helped to try to see if I can help them with their interest rate. You guys really did really good, because I still can't do it because the LLPAs are still too high in order for that to work. So that's a really great point.
Well, that's good. That's a good thing to hear too. And just touching on that briefly too, for folks who do own a home, rates are starting to creep down finally. So we're starting to move toward that refi scenario, which is good also. But you got to buy a home to get there, right? So,
Absolutely.
I'll talk about our brand new program that just launched in Southern Nevada on May 23rd
Okay.
and opened statewide last Monday on
I seen that
July
email.
22nd,
I
right?
did see that email.
So, and when I say statewide, again, rural areas statewide. So that 150,000 population rule still applies, but it's called Launchpad, and we named it that because we want to help home buyers launch into or prospective home buyers launch their home ownership journey. So it is Launchpad. It's intended for first-time home buyers, but kind of like rule, it doesn't mean you've never owned a home. It means you haven't owned a home in the past 3 years. So first-time buyer means not never, just not in the last 3 years. So it is a first-time home buyer program, and a little in the weeds, but that is waived, of course, if you're a veteran or purchasing in a targeted area. Okay. So there is exceptions to that there, but it does provide a flat 4% down payment assistance. So what does that mean, right? It's talking about the loan amount. So let's just use the example of a $350,000 loan amount. 4% of that is what you'll receive in down payment assistance. And it is given the 4% along with the interest rate of 6.17. So in the Launchpad program, because it is a tax exempt bond program, that interest rate is priced at bond closing. It's really getting into the weeds, but it doesn't change. So you can see in other programs and in our other program, the rate varies every single day based on the market. But this program, Launchpad, has that set rate of 6.17%. with the 4% down payment assistance. And the best part, I think, is that once you've lived in the home for 4 years, that down payment assistance is forgiven. So you would never pay it back if you lived in the home for 4 years. 5 years.
5 years.
5 years. I had 4% on my mind, so
it's all right.
It's
he
a
wanted it to be a 444 program,
right?
It was not.
No, so yeah, forgiven after 5 years, and you have access to all that affordable credit there. The lower credit score requirement doesn't change again if it's a manufactured home. So it's a great program that we hope will help a lot of Nevada families.
And it really has, because we have had clients who were thinking about doing the program and not doing and using their funds, actually ended up coming out better using it.
Yeah.
Also because of the rate.
Yeah, the rate is untouchable,
Yeah.
and even we're always thinking about it because that interest rate is locked in there. It's like, well, gosh, what if rates fall below that? But we keep in mind that those interest rates that we might be looking at don't come with 4% down payment assistance.
Absolutely.
So
Correct.
when you look at getting 4% down payment assistance along with a 6.17% interest rate, it's a heck of a deal, and it will be for quite a while.
I think one of the other things that people need to kind of pay attention to that one too is a lot of programs have shifted away from forgiving funds.
Correct.
Right.
I was about to say that. Yeah. It
So
has.
I think because your sister sister programs have recently changed theirs from being forgivable after 3 years to 5 to 7 and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And now to kind of
as
emulating
well.
that. Right? Emulating what you guys do with the home at last.
Right.
Now the buyers have to weigh in a little bit or look at these things a little bit differently.
Right.
And usually you're getting at a slightly higher interest rate. The other ones which tend to be a little bit less competitive. But this one, as of right now, 6.17 is a very competitive rate.
Right.
You're still getting free funds potentially if you're staying in the house for that long.
Yeah.
And like we mentioned earlier, it's more of use these programs more as an entry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I do have a question though, because I know you said it was forgivable after 5 years. What if they sold their house in year 3? Do they have to pay the remaining of that whole balance back, or is it prorated?
It's not prorated, so they would pay back the whole down payment assistance.
Okay.
Yeah, correct.
Well, let's hope rates do go lower, but at the same time,
right. Well, and that's it, and we talk about that with our Home at Last program also, because like you'd mentioned, that program does have a 30-year term on it, and it's kind of not a hard sell necessarily, but something that you really need to explain. So I guess it's a good time maybe to touch on that program real quick. But so Home at Last is a great program for folks who have owned a home previously within the last 3 years, looking to purchase another property and need that down payment assistance help or that access to affordable credit. And it allows incomes up to $165,000. So there's a lot of flexibility with the Home at Last program. And you're right, it does have a higher interest rate because the down payment assistance is baked into the interest rate.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, only 50% of the down payment assistance is baked into the rate. The other 50% is subsidized by Nevada Rural Housing.
Okay.
So that 30-year term on that program came about when that investment happened so that we can continue to replenish those funds so that we can continue to offer the program. And that became necessary, as you know, when interest rates went sky high, we couldn't even price those loans anymore with down payment assistance. It got down to a point where we are going to be able to offer 1% in down payment assistance. And it's not helpful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Folks need 3 to 3.5% to purchase a home.
Yep.
So that's where that investment opportunity came in to subsidize the interest rate. And that's where that 30-year term came from. So it's really kind of a pay it forward program. You know, you use it because you need it.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully your home builds equity over time. And that when you do refinance, when rates are lower, the equity in the home will, when you sell the home, hopefully the equity is enough to cover that and then some. Because when you think about 4% on a $350,000 loan amount, it's not a lot of money. We're talking, I'm going to do quick math, maybe $12,000. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not an overwhelming amount. So again, hopefully you have a lot more equity in that when you sell, or if you refinance, that amount just gets rolled into the new loan amount. And you know, with interest rates that are going lower,
Mm-hmm.
your loan amount might not change or might go up slightly depending on the circumstance, but your payment could still decrease significantly.
Absolutely.
So, you know, so there is that trade-off there, and it's kind of just explaining what it really means. And so you're right, the Home at Last program does have that 30-year term. It is forgiven at the end of 30 years, but you know, it is anticipated that most folks are going to sell or refinance in that time. So
Correct.
it's just explaining how it works, why it's there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a money grab kind of thing or a greedy thing. It's really to help to keep the program going in the roller coaster market
Correct.
that we've all been experiencing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of Home at Last in a nutshell. Again, it provides up to 4% in down payment assistance. It does allow those higher income limits. It does allow for repeat buyers and the access to the affordable credit as well. The interest rate in that program varies based on the amount of down payment assistance, doesn't vary based on credit score or property type. So the interest rate does vary depending on that assistance. And then it is a market-driven program. So it goes up and down every day based on current market conditions.
So I will say this. I know that I keep an eye on those programs, look at the other programs. Sometimes they're there and sometimes they have NA, like you were mentioning a little bit
Right.
earlier. When the rates were a little bit too high, it wasn't feasible to really do it.
Right.
But to kind of touch on that, but kind of segue into something a little bit different, there are always different programs coming out. You know what I mean? And it's always a good idea to know or talk to somebody to find out what's available at that moment. Because recently, I know NV Rural had some really great programs that we had promoted
Correct.
before.
Yeah.
And they're come and go sometimes.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
They are. Yep.
Depending on the funding when it's gone, right? So
Right.
sometimes it's like it could take 3 months and it's all gone.
Right.
What's the longest that you have seen, like the one that had the highest income for down payment lasting out in the market?
Home at Last, since it's a market-driven program, it's self-funded and has been around since 2006. So that program is not likely to go away anytime soon. There have been challenges with pricing those down payment assistance loans, but we got creative and did the subsidy to keep it going. So Home at Last has been around since 2006 and is up to, I believe, nearly 11 billion in mortgage volume.
Wow.
I'm pulling these numbers off the top of my head, so please don't quote me there. It's on our website.
Well, you got to look at also like Nevada used to have like cheaper housing, so 11 billion
it's
is
a lot.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
We're close to, and I could be mixing up the numbers, but it's almost 12,000 Nevada families that have used Nevada Rural Housing Program since 2006 to purchase a home. So, I kind of throw that out there on occasion because sometimes when you hear about these programs, it's like, oh, that's too good to be true, or there's a catch, or
Mm-hmm.
this isn't, I just don't buy it. I don't believe it. And so when we explain how 11,000 Nevada families, just like folks that are tuning in today, have used the program and benefited from it, and really helped make their homeownership dreams come true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as affordably as possible. So it's the real deal. It's that's why we're here.
Yeah, it's definitely why we're here. So I wanted to touch back on something else you said earlier, because I was about to ask you and then totally just slipped my mind. You had mentioned that you don't have to be a first-time home buyer when you purchase this or use this program, Home at Last.
Right.
Right. So I guess, to play devil's advocate here, can you still own another home in the time you're buying another property when you use these programs?
Yep. So Home at Last program allows you to purchase another property. You have to live in the home you purchase through the program within 60 days of closing, but you can continue to own and rent out the property that you owned previously or had already. Okay. So in the Launchpad program, as you know, first time only, haven't owned in the last 3 years. Again, that's waived if you're a veteran or buying in a targeted area. So those folks, if they do currently own a home and use that program, they would have to have sold their home by the time they close. And as you know, especially in real estate, it's often a transaction where there's a contingency involved, where they're like, well, I'm going to buy this home if I sell my home. That's fine, because that's all going to happen in kind of a singular transaction. And so they can, again, if they're targeted area, buying in targeted areas or qualified veterans, they can own a home, just provided it's sold by the time they close.
Okay, that's really good information.
Yeah. The other question, which I totally forgot what it was now, totally slipped my mind.
While you think about it,
I do have a question for
yeah.
you, because we haven't even talked about limits too, of how much, who qualifies for this program.
Right. Perfect. Good question. So the income limit does vary. As you know, we mentioned briefly on the Home at Last program, it goes up to 165,000. For the Launchpad program, it's determined by the county that you live in and your household size. So the limit's based on a household of 1 to 2 people, and then a household of 3 or more people. And in Clark County, just kind of pulling off the top of my head, I believe it's around 92,000 for 1 to 2 people, and 106,000 for a family of 3 or more.
I think it's like 95.2 in Clark.
Maybe so.
He's always on it.
I told you I'm always on there, man.
Which is great.
He always calls me and emails me. He's like, "Hey, Giselle, by the way, we have this going on right now."
No, that's good, because I'm looking at the counties constantly, statewide, and I always have those different numbers in my head.
I don't even try to look at the other ones, because to be honest with you, it's too much.
Clark and I are going to be your 2 most important. Yeah. So it the program that you touched on very briefly with the funds that are now expended, the Home Means Nevada program, that was a great program for the borrowers that fit it, but the income limit was low because it was based exactly on household size. 1 person, this amount; 2 people, that amount; 3 people, this amount. So when you got into those 4-person households or more, it became more obtainable. But with this new Launchpad program, it's a more generous income limit with a smaller household. So we're really hopeful that is just what folks need to be able to use the program.
Well, one of the things I will say about this, because I know we can probably use Home at Last also in like Summerlin South, and for those that don't live in Las Vegas, Summerlin South tends to be one of the more, I wouldn't say prestigious, but more expensive areas to purchase here in the city. One of the things I like about Launchpad is it kind of puts you where you can almost potentially have some buyers that actually qualify in that area. Unlike the Home Means Nevada, where you literally had to have like 6 kids.
Home at Last. Or Home Means Nevada.
Home Means Nevada in order to be able to do something like that.
Right.
But those are some of the programs that, like I said, like I think that people need to always be on the lookout for, because they just come and go randomly. And one of the things, that's what I was going to mention, was you had mentioned that you don't want people to make this more of a money grab. It's our job, like what we did with that one client, and I was going to refer to that one, is we give people the different perspective that you're using this program not to get free money. Because when people call me, they're like, oh, I want to know about down payment assistance programs, or I'm a first-time home buyer, and they always
Right.
think there's just always free money, and sometimes there is,
Mm-hmm.
right? But we have to change, or at least show you guys the reality. This is your opportunity to get into a house. This is how we can get you to get in without having to pay anything out right now.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
And
So
later refinance,
and
Yep.
then
get a lower monthly payment.
yeah. So this is your entranceway. This is your segue. This is your red carpet to get in for little to no money. And I think me and Giselle have done many transactions where how much do clients get into homes for, basically?
We had a client who actually got a refund back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, 2 of those. You and
Yeah.
I have done that.
Yeah.
And they're just so grateful. And it's just
Mhm.
so empowering helping a client who really needs the money too.
Mhm.
Great.
And who really needs to get into ownership, and they just are done renting. They have kiddos who are moving from place to place, and they're just done with it.
Mhm.
And it has been absolutely me as a real estate agent, I'm so grateful that there's these grants for clients.
Yeah.
And that's why we always talk about them, because I want to get as much people into these homes.
That's
Mhm.
great.
Using these funds.
And especially with first-time homebuyers as well, they're renting. Rent is constantly going up. It's sky high these days, of course. And one of the benefits of owning a home is that it's like locking your rent for the next 30 years, and you
Mhm.
just happen to own it at the same time, right? So,
Mhm.
and then you'll know, especially like aside from the upfront costs, which is what our program is intended to help cover or lessen the burden of, oftentimes the mortgage payment can be lower than rent, depending on what you were renting and what you're moving into. So
Correct.
that upfront cost is the big hurdle to help people get into homeownership, which is exactly where our program comes into play.
Mhm.
Love it.
Yeah.
And one of the things I want to talk about, and this is kind of like a personal interaction I think me and Kevin recently had, is we were using that Nevada meet.
Home means Nevada.
Home
Yeah,
means
I know.
Nevada.
So many grants. We start confusing
So
them.
many, yeah.
I was gonna call the Nye one Bill Nye, but
Oh,
anyways,
yeah.
I digress on that. My point was, I recently had a client that we closed, and it was one of the last grants when they had run out of the funds the first time for Home Means Nevada. I reached out to you because we were having issues with like qualifying income. And for those that don't know about down payment assistance program, there's 2 ways to qualify.
Right.
You're going to qualify with us for the loan based on your credit qualifying income. We calculate differently. We're a little bit more aggressive in making your income look lower, whereas down payment assistance programs tend to have a weird way of, if you made so much money at the beginning of the year, it's going to look like you're like
Right.
projected income.
Right.
So I was able to reach out to Kevin one time and actually have a conversation, look at some of the guidelines, and find a way to actually get some of our clients to get qualified for these programs. It's not easy, and it's not always going to work, but it's always great to have someone that works in with the programs that is there to help. So I really appreciate him making sure that like we're not looking at buyers as a number,
Right.
but they're actually people that need these programs and want to get into a home, and that they're more of a person and a human being.
Correct.
So
it is a lot more fun to say yes than explain no.
Right.
So that is my mantra always. I always try to say yes, if we can. And some of these rules are program rules that we make. The vast majority of them are around the source of funding. So like Launchpad is a tax exempt bond program. And because the government allowed those programs to come about with tax exempt bonds, there's extra rules around them. So when it's their rules, we can't make exceptions or bend them or whatever. The Home at Last program is our program. It has a lot more flexibility. So again, we try to have a menu of options available because we know that not any one program is gonna fit everyone. So we try to help as many people as we can by keeping those different options available.
Okay, I'm gonna hold Kevin to that bendable Home at Last stuff. I'm gonna give him a costume.
No, if exceptions can be made, we do. We absolutely do.
Yeah. And one thing I do want to say is with Daniel, though, with his loans, he gets very creative. Very creative. I love him. He always helps all of my clients get them into homes.
Yeah, it's important. And the homeownership process
Yeah.
is very overwhelming and intimidating,
It is.
even if you've done it before.
Mhm.
If you're a first time buyer, it's especially intimidating. The most important thing I think to know is that you don't have to know everything. You don't have to know the
It's true.
answers. The people sitting here in front of you and the other folks that are involved, title companies, insurance, they are all there representing you to make sure that you're getting the best deal and that your interests are protected. So just know that when you have a team like these two working for you on the real estate and lending side, and then of course the title companies, insurance and whatnot, they're all there to support you. So let them figure out the hard stuff. Ask questions when you have them, of course, because we all want you to be as knowledgeable and comfortable with what you're doing. Because buying a home is going to be the biggest purchase decision you likely make in your life. So we want everyone to be as comfortable as possible.
Yeah.
Fair statement.
Yes.
Yes. And I will say this every single time I have a podcast for some reason, but and it always comes up because it's true. It's a matter of making sure you get a good team. And I always
Right.
say that
Yep.
even big corporations, big companies, marketing executives, whatever the case may be, they always succeed because not just they don't do things all by themselves all the time. It's a
Right.
matter of creating a really good team that's going to be there to support you, and you have to have a good cohesive team that understands their role in everything, work together really well,
Correct.
and to get you to that finish line. And that includes you as well because you have a big part in how the transaction works out. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's always going to come up. It comes up every podcast. You want a good team,
You want a
you
good team.
need a
Yeah.
good team.
Yeah.
So
And another thing along those lines is that when you use down payment assistance programs, whether it's Nevada Rural or elsewhere, homebuyer education is generally required.
mhm.
And with our programs, we do have it available on our website at no charge. So you can learn about the home buying process. It kind of dives a little bit into the nitty gritty of it, just so that you're familiar with the different terms and stuff that you might hear when you're sitting down and doing a loan application, or looking at, well, where do I want to buy? What do I want to buy?
Mhm.
What are my wants versus my needs?
Mm-hmm.
What can I afford? Of course, when you start talking about that, the wants and needs start to get into real clear focus.
Yeah.
Correct.
So the home buyer education kind of goes through all of that to give you that little base knowledge to help you feel more comfortable going into the process. And it's a great way to start, whether you use the home ownership program or not. Any of those free home buyer education courses, again, through our website, there are others out there. It's a great way to start and just start to wrap your head around the process, and it'll help it be not so intimidating.
And
Absolutely.
are those online or are those usually in person?
They are online, so they're self-paced, they're accessible 24/7. So homeatlasteducation.org is the direct URL for our education course. It's there for home buyers, and it's not one of those all day super in depth,
Mm-hmm.
you need a master's degree type courses. It really is a high level overview of the home buying process, from budgeting and credit scores to the details about the loan process, the searching for a home process. Again, high level, because we're going to connect you with folks who are your team, like right here, to help you complete that entire journey. So we give you that little base knowledge and then send you off. And that's the other great thing I think about our programs, is that there's no application directly with Nevada Rural.
Mhm.
We direct you directly to an approved lender, like Daniel here, and they take you and walk you through the entire process from pre-closing to from qualification to closing. So it's great that there's no extra steps in there, and it doesn't take any longer to close a loan through our program than it does any other. So
Yeah.
it doesn't add a lot of extra steps.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Neither does the closing day. Doesn't affect. I still could count with the 30-day closing, and we'll be
Mhm.
right on timeline because by the time Daniel we're in contract, he starts communicating with you guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the buyer to start taking the course.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's online. It's easy pace. The buyer's doing it at home.
Yep.
And it educates them and actually even helps the buyer answer a lot of the questions of how the process goes.
Right.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Kevin, I really appreciate. Oh, let me get it closer to the mic because I will tell myself later why we're getting closer. Kevin, I do appreciate you coming by. Do you have any other questions for him before we?
No, I don't. I think we went over all the requirements too.
Mhm.
Credit score too, right?
Yep.
We
Credit
went all
scores.
Yep. Credit score.
limits,
Mhm.
locations of the rule, what that means to the
Oh
buyer.
yeah, rural was definitely confusing when I seen Winchester, Whitney,
You're
and
like,
Summerlin South
how is
on
the
our list.
middle
When I'm
of
like,
Las Vegas
It was all the
rural? I know.
population.
yeah,
We have
And it's
not
not,
enough.
a textbook definition of
Mhm.
rural, of course.
Mhm.
It's because our area of operation is set by the state legislature,
Mhm.
and they said that areas with a population below 150,000 are going to be considered rural, and that's what our area of operation is for our homeownership program. So,
Wow.
Okay.
rural is 150,000 people or less.
Well, let's keep using these programs in those areas before there's too many people there. So
Right.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
build less houses in that area.
Oh,
Thank
right.
you.
Yeah.
But anyways, again, Kevin, I really do appreciate you coming by, man, and giving us all the information we needed on those programs, educating the buyers on like down payment assistance programs and the behind the scenes kind of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I didn't even know a lot of that stuff, to be honest with you.
Right.
I'm sure there's more in the
I
background
know,
too.
I
Oh
know, I
yeah,
that we
know.
don't know about.
I'm a why person. Like
Yeah.
it's good to have the answer, but
Yeah.
why? Why
Yeah.
is it like that?
Yeah.
I understand it better. I learn it better. I remember it better,
Mhm.
and then you just feel more comfortable with it, right?
Mhm.
So, and going back to the home buying process again, it's an intimidating process. So
It
the
is.
more you know, the better armed you are, the better team that you have. It all comes together to make it a seamless and hopefully stress-free process for you, or at least as little stress as possible, because again, it's a big decision. So
Yeah. And speaking of little stress, I have to thank Giselle because she always makes her clients feel at ease. Like I said before, like I'm not even joking when I say clients are always happy to work with Giselle. By the end of it, she does her little thing. If you guys don't follow her on TikTok and Instagram, check out her videos. She's been posting a bit more. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Do you have anything to say for closing?
For closing, I go all out. I truly love all my buyers.
Mhm.
Like, especially like getting them keys. It's like a day, a moment that we just have to celebrate.
Mhm.
So yes, I go all out. And when I mean all out, yes, I put the balloons up. All your neighbors know you got a
Yeah.
house because I put the congratulations.
that's fun. Yeah.
And I make this celebration special, and then I invite all your family too.
So if you guys really want a celebration when it comes to purchasing a home, definitely talk to Giselle. So thank you guys again. I'm going to remind you, this is Kevin with Nevada Rural Housing, and this is Giselle Leyva. She's a real estate agent here in Las Vegas. If you are looking for one, which you should be. And I'm Daniel. I'm your host. I hope that you guys enjoyed this podcast and hope this information was very, very helpful. If you guys have any additional questions or want us to follow up on any other questions, leave a comment below with those questions. You can follow me on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. So please subscribe, share, or even, just share this video with all your friends. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.